Hey, welcome back. So this will be the last lecture for this chapter, lecture 7.9. And now we're going to get personal a little bit. You've probably by now gone through the module about video game addictions and in general about psychological addictions. And that's what I want to talk about here because we know about physiological addictions. We've talked about that. The fact that if somebody takes a certain drug, they can become addicted to that drug because their body will stop producing its version and, rely on that external source. So we've all seen that kind of play out in terms of morphine addictions and other things, and we know how horrible it can be. But then there's these other kinds of addictions that people talk about. So things like gambling addictions, where somebody can't seem to stop, going to a casino and spending money that they don't even have. They might borrow money to go to a casino and to gamble, and to the point where they may end up selling their house and really getting into real trouble. And you have to ask yourself at some point, like, can't they just stop? But it doesn't seem like they can stop. So this isn't a physiological addiction. It's what we call a psychological addiction. The other classic example is the one that we have the module about, video game addictions. And this is hitting some young people. So that's what we want to talk about. How do these psychological addictions work? In order to do it best, I figure we will get personal and go and talk about that addiction of yours. Yes, you have an addiction. We all do. It's one that developed during my lifetime. And it's to these little suckers, okay? So, or more generally, we could say the internet. We've become very addicted psychologically to the internet. People could take the internet away from us tomorrow, and we wouldn't physiologically be impacted, but psychologically we would find it very, very hard. So let's talk about that. And to do that, we have to go back to this notion of schedules of reinforcement that you've been learning about. I talked before in one of the lectures about when I first introduced Skinner, we talked about fixed ratio versus fixed interval and how when it's a ratio, what you'll typically see are these little behavior bursts where the rat will press the bar a bunch of times until he gets a reward. Then he'll rest. Then he'll do another behavior burst and rest. We said when it's a fixed interval, it's a little different. They don't tend to do anything until they think they're about to be rewarded. Then they behave really heavily, and then they stop again for a while. So we talked about those two. Now, these were both what we call fixed, right? Fixed ratio. So a certain number of presses and then you get it. So if it was like 10 bar presses, and on the 10th one, you would get it. And if it's a fixed ratio, that means every 10th one, it's fixed, every 10th one. And that's what produces the pattern that you kind of see. Same with a fixed interval. We talked about your boss coming out every half hour. And, the notion with a fixed interval is that it is exactly every half hour when he comes out. And if you know that, then just before he comes out, you're going to start working really hard. Okay, now what we're going to do is add in some variability, some randomness to these things. And what you see is things change. So let's start with the boss example here. This was the boss example, the boss coming out every 30 minutes. So right when you'll be doing almost nothing until about 25 minutes, and then you'll be really busy the last 5. So when the boss comes out, you're busy. But what if the boss comes out 30 minutes plus or minus 15 minutes? All right. So he may come out just 15 minutes after he last did, or it may be 45 minutes before he comes out. You're not sure. There's that variability. And because you're not sure, what do we see happen with the behavior? We get rid of these little scoops. Suddenly, the rat, when you do this to a rat, when you make it variable, they start behaving continuously and at a pretty high rate of behavior. So this variability makes them behave a lot more. And it's even more dramatic if we did it with a ratio. So rather than getting a reward every 10th time you do something, it might be 10, give or take, 6 or 7. So maybe you've pressed the bar 10 times, you get a reward. Now you only have to press it 3 times and you get a reward again. Or in fact, maybe you have to press it almost 20 times before you get a reward again. You're never really sure. You know it's coming, but you're never really sure when it's coming. And this is the condition where we see the most aggressive responding. This, by the way, is a one-armed bandit in a gambling casino. If you know those one-armed bandits where people pull the arms and the things spin around, right? The way those work is you put in money, you pull that bar, and every now and then you will hit the jackpot. You will get a bunch of money back. But you don't know how many times you have to pull. And sometimes you hit the jackpot, and just a few pulls after that, you hit the jackpot again. But other times you hit the jackpot, and now you're pulling and pulling and pulling and pulling, and you're not getting rewarded. Now, so the first thing we know about this is when you have these variable rewards, people find that very engaging. They really keep behaving. And we can also talk about what we call the resistance to extinction. Let's say we just stop rewarding altogether. So some organism has been in one of these conditions, learning, but now we just turn off the reward mechanism. There's going to be no more rewards. And we kind of say, how long does it take the animal to stop responding, to realize I'm not getting rewarded anymore? And we won't go into the details of the shapes of these. The important thing is just notice that these variable ones are much more what we call resistant to extinction. The animals keep thinking the reward is still coming. Well, why? Well, because it was variable. They were never sure when it was coming anyway. And so now when it's not coming for a long time, they keep thinking, oh, it must be just about here. Okay? And it's resistant to extinction. Okay, let's go back to the gambling hall, the one-armed bandits. Here's the crazy thing. The longer somebody goes without getting rewarded, the more they want to continue playing, because they think that reward must be just around the corner. This is what random rewards do to us. They keep making us think that something of value to us is right around the corner if we just keep behaving. And so we keep doing it, and we can in fact get addicted to it. Okay, that's the in. Let's go a little more slower now, and let's talk about, here's the one-armed bandits I've been talking about. And here's your addiction. Well, actually, this is my addiction. This is my form of a Kijiji addiction, or an online addiction, which is Kijiji. I like to buy and sell guitar stuff on Kijiji to try out all these different things. And when I'm having potential deals going on, when I'm reaching out to people, I'm never sure if somebody's about to respond to something, and if some really cool deal is just waiting for me around the corner. And so I have to keep going back. I have to check, has anybody emailed me? Oh, look, somebody's emailed me. See, I can see a little one up there now. Woohoo, I get even more excited, right? Maybe there's something in the works. And so, I don't do that many trades. They may happen every 2 or 3 months, but it almost feels like there's one around every corner. And I keep going back and I keep checking. We're all like that. Some people it's shopping. Right? You go shopping, and most of the time nothing really exciting happens, but every now and then you get that great deal. You never know when that's coming. It's random, it's variable. And so you want to keep going back, because maybe today that great deal is waiting for you. This is the key to all psychological addictions. In fact, we should bring it back to the video gaming as well. When people play video games, quite often nothing of interest happens during the game, but every now and then something really good happens. They get a level up because they did something, they find some magic item, or they have some great interaction with somebody. Every now and then something good happens, and that makes them want to keep coming back in case there's something good right around the corner. Okay, so it's very strong. These random rewards are very strong psychologically. And here's the kind of funny thing. When we know about it, we know dopamine makes you feel good when dopamine is released. But what we've learned about these sort of psychological addictions, you want to think, like, let's go to my Kijiji addiction. You want to think that when I make the deal, I make a good deal, that's when I feel great. No. When we look at a person's brain, it's when they're chasing the deal. When you think you're maybe going to get a reward, that's when the dopamine is really high. It's the thrill of the chase. So same, with the shopping kind of thing. It's not when you find that deal that your dopamine is high. It's when you feel like you're on its trail. You feel like you could get a deal. That's when the dopamine goes high in the system. So we literally, enjoy that anticipation of something that might be there or might not be. And that keeps pulling us back to the activity, whatever it might be. And so, yeah, here's our shared addiction. For much of my life, these didn't exist. And we lived perfectly fine without them. Amazing to say. But now, not only does everybody have a phone, everyone has a phone so close to them at all times that they can reach it at any minute. It's just literally that close. We need to have our phones close to us because they are our gateway to the internet and everything that goes with it. 1 second. Okay. Sorry. So we were just talking about the fact that, we all have this shared addiction to cell phones. And in fact, there are, things that parents can use right now to kind of say, how addicted is your family? And so let's take a second and talk about the word addiction here for a moment, because some of you might be saying, you're saying I'm addicted to my cell phone. I think of addictions as something that's ruining somebody's life. And hey, I can use my cell phone perfectly fine. It's not ruining my life. And that's at some level accurate. Generally speaking, in psychology, we only consider some behavioral tendency to be a problem if it really is having a negative effect on your life or the life of those around you. And so many of us are pretty good at managing our internet addiction. Remember that PSA I showed you about distracted driving, though? How good are you at managing? Are you using your phone while you're driving in the car? If so, then that's crossing the line a little bit. Now your addiction is becoming a danger to others. And obviously with the video game addiction thing, there's times when people get so addicted to the internet that they stop looking after their hygiene and their basic health. And so then their addiction is a danger to them. And so, sometimes you want to say, well, okay, how addicted are we? Are we at a dangerous level? And there are tests. And here's an example of some of the sorts of questions that you could give. This is from a questionnaire that was developed to get at online addictions. Do you find yourself saying just a few more minutes when online? You want to put it away, but you just want to be up there for a few more minutes. Or do you fear that life without the internet would be boring, empty, or joyless? You can see these sorts of questions. And you could ask somebody these questions. And the more they endorse these questions, the more they say, yep, that's me, then it starts to be a worry. It starts, suggesting that this addiction is becoming a problem for you in your life. And for many of us, it is at some level or another. This either is invading our social world. We go to dinner and we can't stop looking at our phone, which, gets in the way of the potential social interaction, etc., or again, using it on in the car, etc. So, but now realize, why are you doing that? Do you remember when we watched that video, that PSA on distracted driving? I kind of stopped it at one point and wanted to highlight when people said, I think I might have missed something, that somebody could have posted something or somebody could have whatever, and I might have missed it. So that's why I have to keep checking. We call that the fear of missing out sometimes, FOMO. And that's that random reward, right? Every now and then something cool happens on this phone. I don't know if it's happened since I looked at it. I need to look at it again. That's the power of the random reinforcement schedule to create our psychological addictions that can sometimes be a real problem. Okay, cool. So, that's really, I know it's kind of a scary way to end the chapter, but the idea of that is to show you how important some of these principles are. And yes, we had the behaviorist sort of era, and then we'll say it gave way to the cognitive revolution and other things. But everything we've learned in the behaviorist time, we continue to use and leverage quite a bit. We do in our therapies, but we also do in commercials and in all sorts of things. So behavioral psychology is around us everywhere. It never really went away. And it's really important that you understand it well and have a sense of how important it is. Okay, I will leave it there. Bye-bye.